So, Abe, you and I had an amazing conversation on your podcast. And one of the reasons I really wanted to connect with you, and I knew this immediately after we spoke, I even thought about it during the interview because it was one of the best interviews I've ever done. And one of the things I want to talk to you about is your ability to ask questions. You made me feel seen, understood, but you didn't know who the hell I even was. You had some sense of who I was based on my online persona, but you have this ability to ask amazing questions. And that could be the starting point of what we talk about today because I think it's an incredible craft, it's an incredible skill, and I'm sure we'll go in a few different directions. But before we kick off, can you just give me and us like some quick context of who you are, what you do?
Yeah, thank you. And I thoroughly enjoyed it as well. So I'm a professional business coach, and I'm a partner in a company called Business Maps Coaching. And I am pathologically restless, and I love to create things. And so sometimes it's creating business, and it's creating models and forecasting tools and behavioral assessment and kind of all of those things. And sometimes I'm welding stuff up and I'm building stuff out of wood. And so I really enjoy learning. And I've been really fortunate to have a great career as a coach. At the time that my partner approached me to launch our company, I just completed my 10,000th call. And what I love, Arman, about coaching, and it plays right into questions is, the 10,000 hour principle. I don't think it applies here. I really don't. You certainly get better, but the idea that you get mastery, to me, mastery happens when our partnership works and we're achieving and overcoming. And then in our moment, we're having mastery. But all you need to be kicked out of mastery is talking to someone new where you don't know their industry and it's a new relationship and you start again. And I really like that. To me, it keeps me feeling young.
Mastery really seems to be a core component of everything you're all about and everything that you're personally aiming to achieve, but also obviously what you're helping your clients achieve. So that was an interesting definition of mastery. How do you define mastery really then? How do you, it sounds like in that context, it's not about time, it's about a certain outcome. So how would we describe that outcome?
Well, I think mastery is found in the pursuit of it. I don't think it's an arrival. And I think, just think about this. How far in your life do we have to go back and rewind the clock rather, before we could find a period of your life that you weren't able to do, whether you didn't know how, or you just didn't have the skills or abilities, you weren't able to do what you're doing now. And then if we were at that point, we could say, well, how far back do we go till we reach a point that you didn't know how to do what you're doing today? And so for me, I believe that I've been asked so many interesting questions today. That's a really great question. And it feels like a very natural response for me that I view mastery as the pursuit of mastery. I don't know that we ever fully achieve it because there's always room to improve. But I know that I'm playing in the field of mastery when those that I'm working with, that trust me are having an impact, when I'm a present father and a present husband. And honestly, when I hear my kids using great questions, that sounds silly, but they've all been raised in this world where they hear their dad by design. They hear the way that I talk to people and how we learn about people. And I will now hear my 19-year-old daughter in college, when there's some drama in the dorm, and I'll hear her go into coach mode. It's really beautiful. And she'll put her own thoughts and feelings apart and to the side and start exploring people's story. And I'll hear the temperature drop in the conversation. People start coming together. So I like having something that I'm not able to do. I like having something that I feel unprepared, a little vulnerable, a little out over my skis. And when I don't have that, Arman, I'll go find it and insert it. And I've done that recently.
What's so ironic is as you answered the question, you asked a question. And you're wired for that. You know, your way of answering this question of mastery was with a beautiful question that I've never really thought about or heard before. You know, how far back do I have to go? And actually, for me, in some areas that I've developed expertise in, it's not long ago at all. And in other areas, it's taken 7 to 10 years. You know, we could say. So super interesting that you have really cultivated that ability. So speaking of mastery for you, what are the areas then that you are in the pursuit of cultivating and creating this mastery? Where would you say the core focus is?
Um, well, I I don't know where I heard it. It sounds a little too wise for me to have come up with it, but somewhere along the way, I picked up that that we all have a reset discipline. We all have something, whether it's financial discipline or it's physical discipline or it's just professional learning or spiritual. We all have a discipline that when we find that we're a little out of sorts or we're not performing, that we can go and apply focus to that discipline and it will increase our performance in all the others. And for me, it's physical. That's a physical discipline. And so for all of my adult life, I've been a rock climber, and specifically down in your neck of the woods. You're in California, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Yosemite.
Right.
And a love of those great big rocks. And so I find that when I have a scary objective, I read more business books. I'm more attentive to my wife. It's interesting how unifying it is for me. And so recently, this really stands out to me because recently, over the last couple of years, I for the first time in my adult life stepped away from climbing. It was a combination of I felt like I had achieved some of my goals, and my kids are at a unique age, and I'm a little tired. It's a lot to do. And I also had I was climbing El Cap with a dear friend of mine. He's a really well-known rock climber, and he's held just about every record for rock climbing on El Cap that's available, including the ascent record. And while we were climbing it in May of 2018, he fell and broke both his legs. And it was a master course on how to be operationally optimistic. Mm-hmm. It was about 90 seconds. I was cleaning a section of the route. He was up ahead of me. He fell. I heard it, but I couldn't see him because I was under what's called the Great Roof, this big roof. But I lowered out. So about 90 seconds till I had line of sight for Hans. In that time, he fell about 20 feet, hit a ledge, broke both his legs. He has called Yosemite Search and Rescue. He's on with them, sitting on the ledge he hit, and he yells down to me, "Hey, I'm pretty sure I broke one, maybe both my legs. I'm on with rescue. I'll be right with you in just 1 sec." That fast, he went to what I can do. I was gonna lose my nerve because my gift isn't climbing as much as it is talking infinitely better rock climbers into climbing with me. And this guy, nobody knows this well like him. And so all of that happened, and it was beautiful. We went back 6 months and 9 days later and did it again. I mean, this guy is just incredible. But when I got down that time in November, when I got down in November of 2018, we climbed in style, 8 hours and 15 minutes. And normally you don't rappel the whole route. It's 3,000 feet. You walk across the top and you have a 600 feet maybe that you rappel. But Hans couldn't do the hike. So he and I lashed ourselves together and rappelled 3,300 feet together. And I got down and my wife was there and she was proud of me. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing. And you guys, you really crushed it." And I said to her, and I'd never said anything like this. I said, "I'm not saying I'm done, but I'm not saying I'm not done. I think I was just ready to do something else." And so I had been chasing master. I had allowed that to be the frontier of my, of having nerves that I can schedule. I can schedule times that the nerves come in and keep me sharp. Yeah. And now that's gone. And all of a sudden I find myself feeling a little aimless. So when I say for me, it's the pursuit of mastery. I do well, and I have a written mission statement for myself, and even in that statement, it says I train best when training for an event. And so I've really been searching the last couple of years for something, and about a year and a half ago, I picked up a guitar to the dismay of anyone in my household. But I hope this is okay. I'm flowing.
Oh yeah, that's great.
My experience working with top performers and striving to be one myself is that we often will have some kind of an addictive personality. I think I have a healthy addictive personality because I can stop doing what I'm doing at any point that I want. But if that's true, if it's true that I do well when I have something to obsess over, then and if it's also true that I can pick, I get to pick what that is, then I'm going to pick something cool. And I'm learning the guitar for the first time in my life. I can read music, and I'll play about an hour every day. And singing's the hardest thing I've ever done. It's so much easier to climb El Cap in a day than it is to sing. But see, in that it provides for me the discomfort that keeps me progressing. And just today I was asked the question, what gets you out of bed, by a guy who I think is much more inspirational than I am. What gets you out of bed? What gets you in it? What gets you in the fight? And I would love to tell you that I had some near-death experience, or that I'm just so driven. But the truth is, I really like business. I surround myself with a great team. I love the process of learning things. I love the process of attacking new parts of business. I'm wired for coaching. I love that too. And I really like to create things with people I care about. And so I think for me, mastery, I do well when I have a part of my life that is physically demanding. I do well when I have a part of my life. I don't know if this makes sense, but I really believe it. I believe everyone would benefit from having something in their life that causes them to feel vulnerable and exposed, where there's nothing really at stake. You're not going to lose your job. You're not, you're going to feed your family. Guitar and singing is that for me. If I sang for you right now, you'd end this podcast immediately.
No, I wouldn't. I'm sure it's great.
But what's funny is, I have a wife that's a professional singer.
Oh, wow.
And I can speak in front of thousands of people, and have many times. And it's nothing. I love it. But I was borderline phobic. I'm really not exaggerating that. Phobic at the thought of singing in front of another. Practiced for about a month, wrote a song, went to Facebook, horrified anyone that watched. But I didn't do it for anybody else.
You're right.
I did it for me, and it's been, it's really done something for me, and I'm back in search for something physically challenging. And so I think that, in my experience, when I feel like I'm getting comfortable, I have a tendency to just burn my life right to the ground, and not the things that matter, not my relationships. In my priorities, my relationship with my wife is my number one priority in life, and together we have a relationship, a spiritual relationship that we feel is very important. And then, after her, it's our 4 children. I mean, if they're proud of me, I am bulletproof. But I really feel a call to model for them what it means to want something and to go get it, to go make it happen, to get great people, to fail. How about you? I mean, what is it that you think mastery is? What is that to you?
That's a great question. And it's something I think about a lot. And what you just deconstructed is, I think, something that many people I've spoken to have attempted to put into words so many times, and they sort of hack their way through it. to their best effort, of course. But you clearly have spent the time to not just think about this, but to exercise it in both a physical way, a psychological way, a mentally stimulating way when it comes to business, and even a spiritual way. You're just in a mode of expansion, you could say. And I think that what I'll probably talk through it and maybe get somewhere with this, especially as I listen to you more. But I think to me that ultimately one of the great tragedies that can occur in life is when we become comfortable and when we believe that actually success is comfort and luxury and making it. I think making it is the greatest curse ever. Because the moment that you get to that place where you feel that there is nothing else to learn, to do, to seek, to choose something difficult in your life, I think you begin to really fall apart mentally, physically, emotionally. I mean, I think you literally fall apart physically. You go into a mode of brain and body atrophy. It's just stagnation. And so to me, I think, mastery is very similar to what you said. It's the pursuit of any new idea, art, craft in which you can measure improvement on a daily basis. I've heard before, like you said, someone much wiser and smarter than myself once said, happiness is progress. And in many ways, so is flow. Flow is just this idea that you can continually lose yourself in the act and fall in love with what you're doing. And it's difficult enough that it's challenging, but it's not overwhelming that you want to give up. And so to me, my version of mastery is flow. It's just, that's where I've landed. And I think that the most important thing is that we all land somewhere with this. The worst thing, the curse, as I said, is that we believe that making it is the answer. And I think it's a tragedy. And I've watched it happen to many friends who wake up to large sums of money in their bank account because their company exited. And I'm sure you've seen this countless times as well. And they come to you and probably say something along the lines of, what the hell do I do now?
I retired. My wife doesn't want me around as much. Yeah.
So
have you read, and this is a silly question because I'm sure the answer is yes, but have you read Flow, the book?
Yes.
This is so interesting because I don't know if is there a correlation between that book and that research and the name of your podcast?
Sure, for sure. Yes.
So in the book, he's looking for what creates optimal life, right? What creates the optimal human experience, and he comes up away with these incredible commonalities among people that measured the highest in what he called flow, and unique among all of those that would land atop any kind of satisfaction or happiness scale that he used was that there was a unique challenge, that there was a reasonable approach to deal with it. Those two things. And I think it speaks a lot to what we're talking about is
100%.
We are not meant, I don't believe as creatures, we are meant to set it and forget it. We're not meant to settle into a life. We don't have to. This doesn't mean that if people aren't creating a business or if people aren't writing a book or if they're not doing something really grand that they're not getting it done, because it's so relative and it's so personal. I mean, for me, I'm doing those other things, but for me, the step off the high dive, that caused me to scream with involuntarily was singing in front of someone else. And so it's others would say, what? That's simple. So it's really, it's a very personal journey, but I do believe that, flow comes when we have a unique challenge. And if you don't have one, people that have learned this, they go get one.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so you obviously, you have your show, it's phenomenal. And you talk to people about the path that they've gone on to choose difficult events, activities, and or having just gone through difficult events involuntarily and voluntarily. And there is a bit of a difference there. So some of the things you've discussed, some of the ways in which you've chosen voluntary acts that are difficult, is that what you intentionally are saying that is important to you to do? And in what ways have you chosen, or had you gone through in your life, difficult events that might have shaped who you are? That did they make you more open to choosing difficult things because you went through something and you were like, well, this was really shitty and challenging, but I learned something from this, and I'm gonna continue to do that intentionally. Talk me through this whole ethos of choosing difficult.
Well, I feel like when it came to parents, I hit the lottery. You know, I have wonderful parents that are together 56 years.
Wow.
I believe that, and their life is far from easy. It's not easy. I had 4 siblings, and so there's 5 of us, and some of us look at our childhood and say that was magic, and others look at it and say it was, you know, it was less than magic. And I'd say we're still pretty close as a family. But I have these parents that, and my dad was a doctor, and my mom was, you know, was my number one supporter. And when I was a junior in high school, I was raised knowing I could have anything I wanted if I would work. If I would work. And so my dad would create jobs at the office. I was a freshman in high school and I was doing his medical dictation. And funny enough, about 4 years, because I've always been able to type so fast, but I had such an intense training season for El Cap about 4 years ago. I can't type the same. I don't know if I did something to my nerves, but anyway. So I always knew that there was a way. My parents didn't give it to me. I was raised very much that experiences will always trump things, and we had a nice life. But when I was a junior in high school, my father had a financial manager that embezzled from his company, took it all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this, I mean, becoming broke and losing your house and suddenly not having options. I mean, those are the horror stories that happen to others, not to us. And
Right.
So it did a couple of things for me. I had to choose in the faith in my church that I'm a part of. We have an opportunity when we're 19 years old to go out and serve. And I always thought I wanted to do that. But suddenly it's not that cut and dry. I can go do that, or I can go to a semester of college. I don't actually have, you know, the option. I ended up going, but that just kind of tells you like what this was mentally for me. So I watched my dad, who's my hero in life, who's, you know, we thought we had properties, they're gone, it's all gone. I've watched my dad, who's my hero in life, come to me one day and say, he had a lawsuit, come to me and say, son, I dropped the lawsuit. And I was so mad. What? I wanted this guy hung in the public square. I wanted him executed.
Yeah, he ruined
So
your
angry.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he ruined my life. The truth is he had very little to do with what was going on in my life, but we thought, you know, we could point at a guy. I wanted to point at him in a courtroom and say, you took something from us. But my dad said, I let it go. And I was really upset. And he was exceptionally patient with me in that moment. But he said to me, I had to let it go. It was taking my life.
Wow.
I mean, who knows how many times in the course of my life I've thought back to that lesson where I think, even now looking back, I think that he does well in court. That guy was very wealthy. We had a paper trail. But my dad chose to be happy and content, and he chose joy in his daily walk, and he chose to lean into us and the relationships he had over losing himself to what he thought he deserved or what he thought he earned or what he thought he once had that he needed to get back to.
Right.
And it didn't take us very long before we were with him. And, you know, when I was my senior year, my dad, he's a very spiritual person. And I remember I I knew nothing about any of the, I knew nothing about the Islam. I knew nothing about Islam. I knew nothing about the Buddhists. And my dad had me drive him to the airport, and he went to India, dug wells for 3 weeks, and
Wow.
and lived in an ashram. I think I'm saying that correctly, in a monastery. And I got to watch this man that that even now is just such a hero to me. I got to watch him. What he's really doing is he's trying to find himself, but the way he's doing it is perfectly right. He is jettisoning the negative out of his life. He's serving wherever he can. I mean, they're working 60, 65-hour work weeks. This whole thing triggered an IRS audit, then Medicare. Like, it's hell. But I'm watching my dad find his best life and help us find ours. And so, fast forward a little bit to 2006. I had a construction company. I call it the season I had a license to print money. And apparently, giving us all the money so easily over time would lead to a little blip in 2008. I don't know. I think I blacked out for like 9 or 10 years. But I had a new construction company, and we lost it all, as did many people.
Yeah.
But I had been through this once, and I had an incredible example. And I knew that would be a choice for me, that I could be upset politically, which, by the way, is hardly ever productive. You want to be productive in a political conversation? Find someone you disagree with and just earnestly try to learn from them. Don't convert them. Don't condemn them. Just learn the way they think. So, we went through that in 2008. And can I tell one story about that?
You could tell as many as you want. Yeah, these are great. I'm learning so much, and it's very inspiring.
So this is, I had a great partner in this construction business, and I wish I would have done what others had. No, I don't really, but had I done what others had done on their loan documents, when this all melted, I wouldn't have been on the hook, but I didn't. And so I'm the personal guarantor on all these homes. And we went from selling a home before the foundation's done digging to no one will look, and we just had, it was rough. And so my wife, I told you she's a professional singer, and she has this standing gig. This is the greatest thing around. She's hired by Sun Valley Ski Resort.
Oh, yeah.
And we're a big ski family, and we've now done this this will be 19 years this year when we go up. And we go for the last 2 weeks of the year, and she sings with 11 other incredible performers, and they play the English handbells, and they go in and out of the restaurants, and they give us season passes and put us up in their nicest lodging and meals at all the lodges, and we just play. And now there's 12 families. We've all raised each other.
Wow.
We spend Christmas together. And so in 09,
cool.
I think it was 08. It's 08. We're in Sun Valley. I have not told her what's happened. And I didn't tell her because it was so mentally, just because I had been through it once as a younger man, didn't make it an easy path later. It helped me get quicker to clarity of what was really important. I don't think any of us ever get to clep out of the challenge of learning. And so I had not told her that we had lost all of it. And even though basically everyone around me was going through the same thing, that's not how it feels when it's you. And we had hired a babysitter we had smaller kids, and we'd hired a babysitter, and she was going to go shopping with her friends, which is really funny because she doesn't shop. She hates it worse than I do, and I hate it. But she was going to go be with her friends. I was going to go ski with my friends, and I didn't go ski. I went and sat by the fireplace in the reception area of the inn at Sun Valley and extended credit lines so we could pay our mortgage.
Wow. And
it was so heavy to me that she came back early and saw me. And she's like, "Hey, why aren't you skiing?" And I laugh a little now what this must have sounded like, but I said, "I need to talk to you. I need to tell you something." And so we went up to the room. Now, Listen to what that sounds like.
Yeah.
Right? You cheated?
It's intense.
Yeah, I'm like, we got to talk. And she could see I was visibly distraught. And I told her, we're broke. We have no money. It was funny. Who would have known that would have been the good news? I thought you were going to tell me that you cheated on me. No, we're just broke. But kidding aside, I was so mentally just extinguished from dealing with all the creditors and my partner and trying to work.
Oh yeah.
Just working through it all, that in my mind, I thought I failed her. She won't want to be with me. There was no evidence for this.
Sure.
But that's where I am.
And
so
stories ourselves.
We do.
Yeah.
And I said to her, just with fear in my heart, I said, this is what's happened. And she said to me, she just grabbed me and said, why have you done this alone?
Wow.
I just broke in half.
Wow.
And we've had a lot of things that we have been through, but in my experience, happiness will never be found in a calm, rippleless existence. It will also never be found, and maybe this is just for me, it will never be found in the absence of meaningful relationships with people in my life. And so I look at that season of life where we went through that with the crash of the market, and I was a really present dad, and I was present because I needed those kids. I needed that fill. Teresa and I have always been close, but we didn't get in this together, but we got out of it together. I got a job running a large real estate company. There were 330 agents in there. I took the job because I needed the money. And I remember I found Dave Ramsey. And Teresa and I had reinvested most of our money into real estate, but I did make two really stupid purchases. I bought us new cars. No kidding. It was about like this. We will take that Honda Odyssey touring model off the showroom floor and throw in that Acura TL. Well, you're about like that. It's not my greatest moment. But now we're at this place where we've got a unique challenge. Listen to how creative we were able to get when we had each other. So the banks would give me all the money I wanted before this. Now they won't. There's no forgiveness. And of course, they're dying too. We all created this together. And I found this book by Dave Ramsey. I read it. I had Teresa read it. Baby steps. Like, our new construction company was pretty sophisticated. We developed land. We did all of it. Now I just need these baby steps. Number one, put $1,000 away. Like, it was just what I needed. Yeah. So now I'm running this real estate office, and I brought that program into the office, and I told the agent, I told anyone, if you will come here with whoever your significant other is and complete the course, I'll pay for it. Our office will pay for it. One couple completed the course totally. It was us. One couple stood up and cut up their credit cards. I was horrified. That was my safety net. We couldn't get a loan for a car. They wouldn't give us a loan. So here's what we did. I went and found a 11-year-old Jetta that the guy would sell to me for $3,500. And I convinced him to sign over the title. Then I went to the bank and refinanced it for $5,000. And then I took that money and tried to pay down the Acura loan so that when we wouldn't lose as much. And I did the exact same with my wife's car. We took that brand new touring Honda Odyssey, this beautiful vehicle, and I went and found a 10-year-old Dodge Caravan, talked that guy into signing it over. It was $3,500. Talked him into signing it over. I then went and got a loan. And the things that you think are going to matter to you, like what people will think.
You think they're humbling experiences, but yeah. Yeah.
You think that that's going to be terrible and that people are going to think a certain way. But what you find when you're open to observing yourself getting kicked down the hierarchy of needs, what you find is it isn't the perception of others that matters to you. If your experience is like me, it's who are you journeying with? And what do you want this chapter to say? and Teresa and I have emerged out of that. We've had other, challenges, nothing financially like that, but we've had other challenges. But, when you referenced the way that I ask questions,
Yeah.
I've worked hard to ask questions, but it really came even before my coaching, asking questions, because it came because I want to know people. And so I think what you're learning about me is that I don't sit well, and I like that about myself. And trials come, as they do for all of us, but I can get through just about anything if I have my friends and my family intact. And now we're in a totally different circumstance. We're in a completely different phase of life. But in this phase of life, when the pandemic hit, can I tell you about this?
Yeah.
We're a
Curious how
coaching.
that-
We're a
yeah.
coaching company, and one of the hardest thing I've ever done professionally is create a coaching company. You can create the company, that's easy,
Right.
but coaching's different, because you can't teach this script that they do for everyone, because the people that you're working with, there is no fit matters.
Right.
But we are business coaches, so we have models that we coach businesses into. So we had to create a way to find and hire people that could become great coaches, give them the structure to provide a predictable experience, but not overstructure them so that we take away their natural abilities and their personal gifts.
Right.
This is challenging.
Very.
But I like the way we've done it, and the way we've been able to do that is we simply are growing with our coaches. I mean, we know what we know because of those that are doing the coaching. And so the pandemic hits. When your client is the local business owner across the United States and the economy shuts down, it's going to be a rough couple nights, my friend.
Yeah.
I got together with my team. I'm really proud of us. And when I say that, I'm really proud of them. I got together with my team and we talked about, what are we going to do? This is going to hit. This is going to, our clients I don't think they had seen it yet. We were very early, because I have a great business partner, Gary Keller, that kind of walked me through what's coming. And so I started calling our clients, because if they go out of business, we go out of business. Yeah. So I started calling them to say, how you doing? And they were very optimistic. I mean, they would say, it's rough, but we're doing good. And I would get really specific. How much do you have in? I'm not their coach. I'm calling as the CEO and the founder of this company. And I would say, what do you have in reserves? What do you mean? If you didn't take in another dollar and you didn't change your expenses, how many months could you pay for that? Well, I think about this much. I want you to log onto your bank account right now and verify that's the number. Send me a screenshot of that, will you? I just started to dig. And what we discovered is no one was really as prepared as they thought. Yeah. So as a company, our mission here is that we create sacred partnerships that require the best in us to bring out the best in them. We cut our company dollar down to 25%. Every coach agreed to take less. We took, as a company, 75% less. We still employed our coaches. We kept every client. And there were several. One of my very favorite clients of ours, I shouldn't probably have favorites, but sometimes you do. They're a speech pathology company in Fresno. They were doing what we taught them. They were canceling coaching because they were reworking all their expenses. And I said, no. Told them, no, we'll coach them for free. They're not going to go through this by themselves. Wow. And we did that for about 2 months, and then they came back. And I don't know if I haven't been through the complete failures and found my way out of the dark with wonderful people, I don't know that we do this the same. I don't know that I listen.
Probably
to
not.
my team. Yeah. Probably not. Yeah. And so, so we've really talked about a couple categories of challenge, right? Some of the categories we've talked about are those that we tee up. I'm ready for challenge. I'm going to challenge myself. I think is very important. But the other is no respecter of persons. It'll knock on every door. And that is, life just challenges. You shared on my podcast, you shared some of your challenges growing up, and
Yeah.
these are real. You've overcome some really intense things and are probably still working to overcome some really, really intense things. I think it can be a more satisfying and purposeful journey for the person that says, I'm going to lean into those that are around me. I'm going to jettison those that, that talk negative and bring me down. And I'm just going to, as humbly as I can, I'm going to work as smart and hard as I can, but I'm going to lean into this challenge and take it
Doesn't a
straight
lot
on.
of it seem to come down to choosing a certain type of meaning as well for the difficult circumstance that is in front of you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We see that over and over in our show. The people that we have on. One of the guests that we had was a gentleman who had a long career in the NBA named Thurl Bailey. Are you familiar with Thurl Big T Bailey?
It rings a bell.
He
Yeah.
played with a little duo called John Stockton and Karl Malone here in Utah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Those guys, and Thurl Bailey, he's done very well. He's now I think he's a sports commentator for TNT, and he's done well in his career. But he was raised in the 60s in Maryland. His parents were at the monument when Martin Luther King gave the speech. And he was on the team at NC State that beat Akeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler to win. They beat the team that was unbeatable with Jim Valvano. He was a senior on that team. He's drafted first round, and 5 years into his career, or 4 or 5 years into his career, the coach comes and says, "I need you to come off the bench." Now, we would probably say at this point, I mean, it's easy for us to stand back and say, "Oh, big deal. You're getting paid millions of dollars. You're an athlete." But that's really disrespectful of somebody else's personal experiment. Someone could say the same of us, whatever's important to us. It might be a title at our work. It might be a certain way that we're known, whatever. But what Thurl said was, he said, I said that must have been hard. He said it wasn't hard at all. In fact, I said to the coach, "I'll do whatever you need me to do because I'm going to play the role that's most important for this team." And I really believe that we just an hour and a half ago, I had an hour and a half long conversation with Liz Wiseman. Do you know who that is? She wrote this little book, Multipliers.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite leadership books, by the way. She shared some struggles in her life, and it was reaffirmed that there are those. And if you're not one of these, if you're listening to this and you're not one of these, maybe it's because you don't know this isn't even an option. But there are those that when you get gut punched, we feel that, right, Arman? We feel it. It comes. But there are those that will take that for a minute and then say, "This isn't the thing that's getting me.
Right.
I'm going to focus on what I can do, not what I can't do." By the way, the story I told you about Hans when he fell and broke his legs, that's what I learned from him through that whole thing. He instantly was fully focused on what I can do and not focused on what he can't do. When we went through our financial ruin, my wife and I reached a point that we said, "Well, what can we do?" We can sell our cars at a loss. We can replace, we can change our income. We did all of those things.
This is a form of ancient philosophy, It's like, what can we actually control in this circumstance?
So why do you think, and I have a theory, but I want to know what you think. Why do we instinctively and societally seem to want to focus on what we can't do?
That's a phenomenal question.
And I'm not referencing what we don't have the ability to do. I'm saying we look at life through, the reactive negative lens.
That's a phenomenal question. And an immediate answer comes to mind. I think it's because we have lost the respect for the hero's journey.
Ooh.
I think that our heroes today in culture and in society are generally victims. and victims focus on, this question of all of these things that have happened to you, the circumstances you've been through, and even what you talked about with Hans. All of the examples you gave, the person is sitting there asking themselves, is this the beginning or the end? And oftentimes, what you find in life is those that fall apart at the sign of a hardship or a challenge or something difficult, they're basically letting their mind brainwash them into believing that this is the end, and that there isn't anything that they can control, and that anything that they can control will never get them out of this dark hole. And another very unfortunate thing that happens that's very common, that makes me sad, and I realized it a lot while you were talking, is, and I love this about you, you look to who's around you and you strengthen those relationships. Unfortunately, most of the time what happens for people is that not only are they in a very dark place and going through a challenging time and it feels like it's all over and there's no way out, but they don't share it with anybody. And loneliness can kill you. It can literally send you into such a dark, dark, dark place that some people never get out of. And I think you're absolutely right that life comes down to a series of events. Many of them are challenging and circumstances that are difficult, and learning to develop mastery along the way while also strengthening the bond with the people that you have around you and love, because in the end, all we have is our memories of each other. I mean, literally, what do we actually have in the end? We will be forgotten in 2 generations by now. So it's like this life ultimately does come down to mastery, to enjoyment, to experience, to love, to art, to play. And it's all integrated by love and the people around you. Like, that's what it comes down to. We will never avoid trauma and hardships and challenges in life. We will never, a disease, loss of a loved one, going bankrupt. These are all, many of them, some of them, inevitable things that will happen. And if we navigate our lives to just simply try to avoid the inevitable, we're going to suffer forever, perpetually. And then we get there and we go, why did I get here? Woe is me. And what you're talking about, I think we have to go back to, I can tend to be a bit, obviously, as you can tell, classical and traditional in my thinking, because I think that a lot of the wisdom that we had, there's a reason that it existed. And I think that society today is far more lost than perhaps it used to be. We had models, we had archetypes, we had symbols of how to lead our lives. We had religion. A lot of people like to shit on religion. I think religion is a beautiful example of a construct to create meaning and fulfillment and joy and connection with something bigger than yourself. We've lost that as a society. And so we're running around frantically like victims. And I think we've lost the hero's journey. And that's probably why we do what we do.
I think I love the reference to the hero's journey. I think that there's a couple contributing factors additionally. One of those is that we live in a time in human history where technology allows, as Set has ingrained in us the knowledge that everything happens very fast.
Mm-hmm.
I get my food fast. I can just click on Amazon. This thing's going to show up in my house tomorrow. Even as simple as I can pick up this phone and in seconds hear your voice. Like the world that we live in is very, very fast. Yeah. And with speed comes shortcuts. And with speed, we often don't think. So when I don't want to go too deep into this, but when you look at our brain, the first filter, the part of the brain that every stimulus that you and I ever experience passes first through is called the amygdala. It's the fight or flight center, and it's only striving to answer just a couple questions. Is this thing a threat to me, and can I beat it if we fight? I learned this from an incredible friend of mine named Matt Townsend. And so the research shows that if we don't get out of the amygdala within 6 seconds, then the adrenaline that hits our system will course through our body for 24 hours. It's the reason when a couple has a fight at night, even when they make up, they still can't sleep. They're chemically hijacked.
Right.
And so when you see people that are reactive, we're so fast and we react. You know, Grandma tried to get it right when she said count to 10. Count to 10. It's just some of us can count to 10 in 3 seconds, right? And come right back loaded. But there is something to be said about taking a breath, getting into the higher mind, and really striving to understand another person before we just outwardly condemn. The other thing too, and I think this is at the core of what we're dealing with. We're being algorithmically programmed for conflict.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's way, way deeper than we realize.
It is. We are, I remember I got on an airplane when Trump and Hillary were going head to head. Right? I mean, when the aliens dig up the time capsule of that year, they'll be like, what were they all thinking? And I sat next to a gentleman who had a very different political ideology. In fact, he taught that ideology at the University of Utah, where I got my bachelor's. And I remember that day, I had a question that was a sincere question about his side of the aisle. And when I say it was sincere, I really didn't know. And I said to him, I have a tendency to lean this way, but I would like to know from someone who will earnestly just share with me the way that they see it. I'd like to know this. And I asked him a question I had not been able to come up with an answer for. And he gave me the most thoughtful point of view. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I don't think any of the issues we face are so black and white that if you like that person, then everything they do and say is right. These issues are too complicated. He then in turn said, well, can I ask you something around your political leaning? Yeah. And he asked me something and I responded in kind. Well, I see it this way. We had the most uplifting conversation, sharing our different views. We didn't agree. But I wanted to understand because, ready for this? We're getting matching tattoos, let it be this. I wanted to understand because I didn't want to misunderstand them. I didn't want to understand so I could have the upper hand. I didn't want to misunderstand someone because I was being misunderstood.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to perpetuate that. Well, nowadays, you go to YouTube, you watch a clip on CNN or a clip on Fox, and the algorithms say he's a Republican, send him all that, or he's a Democrat, send him all that. And we're fed these soundbite, hate clips. Yeah. And it just gets us so going. But I am absolutely convinced that we are not going to solve our social divide in groups. It'll be one-on-one like this. Because when we see one another, when I see you, I think different than when you're just some anonymous guy on Facebook. We're wired to connect. And so I actually have a lot of hope for the future because we're starting to see some research that's showing the danger that we're facing.
Yes. And
I think that those are things that we've got to become aware of. We've got to talk about those things, independent of political side. Both sides weaponize the algorithms equally. So independent of that, we've got to start to recognize that we're being wound up in a way that is a little out of our control now. We got to step away from it. I was told by my team, you got to be on Facebook. We need a presence. And I've always posted on Facebook for my own, just kind of my own journal. I really do. I post just for myself, and I love going back and reading it. But I've been deleting it off my phone. Guess what happens when you delete social media off your phone? Nothing.
Yeah, that's what a friend of mine said. I couldn't agree more.
There's a lot about it that I enjoy. I like to see what some others are doing, and I like to share and post things. This is really clunky and this wouldn't make sense to a lot of people, but I'll delete those apps. And then when I want to post something, I'll just download them. That takes like 8 seconds. That's exactly
what I do. What I do.
Download them again, post something, check on things, say hi to that guy. delete again. And I can tell when I'm getting caught up by it.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell?
Oh my God. So, it's funny you say nothing happens, and that's absolutely accurate. But the only of the things that we think we'll lose, but actually
Yes.
what we gain clarity, focus, peace of mind that we didn't even know was being taken hostage at all. That's what I found. And I think we live in the. I share your optimism. I think people are waking up to these facts, and I think that we're sort of we have entered a delete social media generation. I, for one, have done that. I've talked about it a lot. I shared some posts on Instagram talking about deleting Instagram, and people loved it. It was, they were like, oh my God, you've inspired me. I want to do the same. And I shared that the reason was because I felt that my brain was completely hijacked. And even though I have tried incredibly hard to be a moderate because I love the nuance and I love going from topic to topic and asking people questions and learning about those things and viewing things in a very granular and nuanced way, because life is gray. There is no such thing as these black and white viewpoints. Even so, and even though I believe that we'll hopefully and ideally see a shift toward just moderate thinking and more nuanced thinking and less extremism on both sides of the aisle, I still felt hijacked. I still felt anxious. I still felt overwhelmed. And at the end of the day, I saw another one. I'll read it to you right now because people loved this, but it's just the funniest little message about social media. And it basically says that social media is like, I'll pull it up for you right here. Social media is like looking in the fridge over and over. You know there's nothing good, but you check it so many times that eventually you start consuming things you don't even like.
Oh, it's so true. Now listen,
It's so true.
you cannot unhear what you've heard. You and me, we know that. Anyone else that's listening to this knows this, which means that if you're going there and getting hijacked, it's a self-inflicted wound.
Right. We have to take control.
Yeah. And, I remember it felt very inefficient to delete the apps. I looked for all kinds of solutions, but, I can use the hide function on my iPhone, and I can still go to Facebook through the search feature.
Right.
20
It doesn't work. Notifications off, turning notifications off, screen limit doesn't work. I overdo it. I'm like, give me one more minute,
Now you're begging yourself. Like, just one more hit. I just need one more hit.
Yeah.
So, here's a great example of this. It's the Olympics, right? Mm-hmm. We have just been through it as a world. And we have radically politicized the coronavirus conversation. But one thing that we should all be able to agree on, we've gone through something here. This wasn't a made up virus. Like there were people very affected by this. And so we've made it about masks and about like, it's just run amok. And I have my opinions, but it's the Olympics. This is when the whole world comes together. This is when we get the great stories. So I ask you, what's been covered? Did you see the runner that fell and the other runner that stopped racing and picked her up? Different countries.
In this Olympics?
Yes.
Yeah. I haven't been watching, but I feel that the news that does get to me is generally the loudest. And the only one that's come to me so far,
the women's soccer team, right?
Yeah, right. And also Simone Biles and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, not necessarily these beautiful stories. Yeah.
Yeah, this is this time. I saw an interview with one of the swimmers. This dude, he just looks like he was carved out of stone or something, and he won a gold, and the interviewer compared him to Michael Phelps. And he said, no, I don't compare myself to Michael Phelps. And the guy said, why? And he said, because I think that's disrespectful to Michael Phelps. I don't have to be better than him to feel good about myself. I can win a gold medal and just be grateful to be a part of what I'm doing. It was so healthy. There's so many wonderful, beautiful stories. Now, Here's a fundamental belief that I have. I'd love your take on this. I believe inside of every day, there is something truly wonderful to see if we're looking, and there's plenty of crap that we can get upset about. Every single day we wake up with a choice. And so for me, we talked about the journey of mastery. So for me, it's important to stay a journeyer, to stay in journey mode. You're only going to be disappointed when you think that that life is where it's supposed to be. Those are profoundly disappointing words. Those rank right up there in level of disgust in my world with, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. I just want to throw up. Right? Because we're going to, when something terrible, we try something, it doesn't work. Well, that's how it's supposed to be. No, that's not how it's supposed to be. You tried, it didn't work out, and then you stopped.
Right.
You quit the story. It was a semicolon. It wasn't a period. Right. Tell the rest of it. Get up. Try it again. Right? And so I believe that if it's true that every day there is meaningful, worthwhile, exciting learning that we can have. I'm 48 years old. I'm just learning how to read music. 48. People say, oh, it's harder if you're older. Look, it's probably harder when you're younger. It never seemed easy to me. I just want to do it now.
Right.
So someone wants to learn a language. There is a girl on Instagram. I don't follow too many, but there are some that I do. And strong. You got to look up Strong Like Sarah.
Okay, I'll link her to people.
Little junior in high school, right between her junior senior year. This is 1 year ago, last week. She is coming down a canyon up here, Logan Canyon. They are hit by a drunk driver. She's with 4 friends, I think.
Oh my God,
dude! She was in critical care. It's during the pandemic, and so her family can't go in there. They amputated both of her legs. But these beautiful people have shared her journey in the most inspiring way. She has, and they have, the whole time. Every little thing. Today, I sat up by myself. Well, you and I would sit up and think, yeah, but it's probably harder if you don't have legs, right? And when there's this one, I've gone back and just looked at so many posts. If I'm having a rough day, I'll go back and look at their posts. There's this one where she's brought to the window and she puts her hand up and her family's out there. They can't come in. But there's so much joy in that they get to experience this time together. She was a cheerleader. So when she got home, they filmed her being brought in on the wheelchair in her cheerleading uniform to cheer with the squad. And look at that. Look at that. Look, if you're upset by the women's soccer team, don't read about it. If you're upset at what the Democrats have done, don't read about it. If you're upset at what the Republicans have done, don't read about it. Go read about Sarah.
Right.
Go read. There are so many amazing things that are occurring in the world today. And you and I are one meaningful conversation away from feeling different. I have to share another one. You said nice. It won't take an hour and a half, but we'll probably go longer. No. So outside of a global pandemic, I travel a fair amount. And
same.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do something. Wouldn't it be fun to do something together? I often will arrange for my wife to bring one of the kids and meet me out there, or I'll bring one of the kids, or, for a few years. I can't do this now in my role in this company, but for a few years when I was just doing my own thing, I would go and speak, and in exchange for the speaker fee, I'd have them bring my family out and provide an experience. So we've had all these neat things, and I wanted my kids to be able to point at their dad and say, because he's doing that, we get to do this.
Yeah.
So the pandemic hits. All right, so we're talking about, negativity and like surrounding yourself with the right people and kind of all those things. The pandemic hits. Now, I want to be very clear on what I'm saying. I'm not making a political statement either way. Then George Floyd hits. So I remember during the pandemic, it started to feel like we're coming together. And then And again, I have an opinion, but I'm not going to say it here. But we all did watch a video of a man die.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether you thought there were additional circumstances or not, we all know what happened. We had political leaders that sought every opportunity to weaponize that for their cause, on both sides. So in no time, we're not talking to one another. We're hating each other. My sister, who's one of my heroes in life, she went up to Utah State University. They kicked her out her freshman year for failing her classes. My mom had her tested. She was dyslexic. She has such grit. She dug in, graduated top 10% of her law school, spent 12 years as a public defense attorney. The last 6 years over all the federal cases, the big ones, murder one. That sister of mine, who I have a friend of mine that's a partner in the largest law firm in Salt Lake City, was at the time. He's since opened his own door, but he called me one day and said, "Hey, your sister won't call me back. There's a point. I'm taking you somewhere. Your sister won't call me back." I already knew. I said, what are you doing? He said, "She has more trial experience than our national head of litigation. We want her. I said, "Did you leave her a message?" "I did." "Did you say money?" "I did. I told her we'd make her a millionaire overnight, and I said she'll never talk to you." You think she works in the public defender's office for the money? You think she's about this? So this sister of mine that dedicated her life through a decade of infertility, trying to become a mom, this incredible woman that would stand up for those that everyone said they're guilty. She stood up and fought for people in our justice system. Very seldom ever posts on Facebook. She posts something about one of her kids. She has these adorable twins. She has a friend from college sitting on a balcony in Park City, Utah, sipping Chardonnay, who comes after her and says, your silence is deafening. You clearly support the radical right."
Oh, boy.
This was in a comment about one of her children. This was in a post
boy.
about one of her children. My sister's she's done more than most people I know for those that can't defend themselves. But I use this because
it's a good example.
Because it's an example of when in our current environment, this is how we come after one another. So pandemic hits. I'm not sleeping much. We're holding the business together. Coaches, I'm worried about keeping fed and a family. Mm-hmm. My daughter says, "Dad," she says to all of us, "I have an idea. We're going to dress up for a theme tonight. We're going to dress up." I was not in the mood. I mean, my days were spent trying to keep the business alive, trying to save our clients. I mean, when this thing hit, I volunteered for any of our coaches to sit down with them and their spouse and do their family budget. Like they were such long days. But my daughter also lost her senior year. Senior prom.
Yeah.
All those things, gone. We're going to dress up. So I said, "Oh, okay, let's do it." Every night for 60 straight nights. You can go look at #COVID dinner theme. In the whole time, it was during the whole quarantine, during the whole thing, every day, we dressed up as something else. And it was cute. I was shocked at how many people followed our journey. I would say over and over again to people, steal this from us. Do this with us. Because what was amazing is we're fighting the fight on the business front line. Mm-hmm. But I still have what's most important to me.
Right.
I'm crystal clear. And my daughter's genius in this period of time was that there would be a moment in the day that I would have to stop.
Right.
I would have to stop and go dress up. And we would usually have a dinner with the theme. One night it was toga night and Greek pizza. And we watched My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I remember one night we did prom. I dressed up my wife. This is amazing. She wore the prom dress she wore her junior year.
That's awesome.
My 2 boys were the dates of my 2 daughters. When we sat down to dinner, I get emotional about this stuff because it's so real to me. When we sat down to dinner, I had an 18-year-old daughter. with tears streaming down her face saying,
Wow.
thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
You know, this means so much to me. We did a lot of funny ones. We did the Hillbillies. We did all the different decades, 80s, 70s. In all of it, we spent $9 total. I have a book over there that my family put together for me with all those themes. It's not about dressing up. I can't tell you how many people have written to us and said, we tuned into what you guys did every night. We didn't do it for likes.
Mm-hmm.
It had a shelf life. It was going to end. We did it because it caused us to stop and leave the turmoil of our moment and be together and do something together. There were so many nights I didn't want to do it, but I can tell you that there was never a night I regretted doing it. One night, the picture that you see is from the back. It's from the back of us. We're sitting on the couch. You just see our silhouettes. That night, we simply had nothing left. It was a rough day at work. School was canceled. That was the theme. We're going to sit in this and just feel this.
Wow.
And kids had birthdays. But look what we did during COVID birthdays. I'm sure you guys saw this too.
Yeah.
We would get a notice that so-and-so is going to be standing in the front yard, and this procession of cars would drive by. You know, there's a spiritual leader I follow that says that no amount of success will compensate for failure in the home. And I've learned if I have them, I am bulletproof. So, you know, I have people that have come to this company to work with me that I have people that have come here to, you know, I feel the weight of their families and of their future opportunity. But I think if I really had to say why I'm driven because I've got others I've got my family on this journey with me. They're who I run to. They're who there's who I want to model life for. You know, they've held me in really dark times. We've leaned into those times together. Let me see if I can bring this around, Arman. If you're listening to this and you own a business, you're maybe crushing your business. You're maybe getting crushed by your business. You may be stuck. You may be free and just flowing like no one's ever seen. But this, you know, I'm just feeling this. So just let me say this if I could.
Please. We'll
never get our kids' childhood back. There's no issue that's more important to be right on. Nothing's more important about being right than it is being connected with those that we've committed to. There's no issue that's more important. I can prove that. You want me to prove that? Mm-hmm. You take let's just say a husband and a wife for an example's sake. That's at odds over something. And it's bad. People divorce over the dumbest things.
Yeah.
We say that. It's easy for me to say that now, but people get so lost in what it all means to them. So I shouldn't call it dumb. Let me not devalue someone else's struggle like that. But you take a couple that is just locked at odds. And then somewhere, one of them just has that moment where they say, you know what? This is my fault. I think I started this. Arman, almost instantly, what does the other do?
Starts admitting their faults.
That fast. No, it's not you. That fast. Mm-hmm. Minutes ago, we wanted them drug out in front of the school and shot. Mm-hmm. And that fast, we'll say, no, it's not. No, it's not your fault. It's me.
Right.
That's the evidence that we want to connect. And so, you know, I think it'd be a blast to do an event together or get something going together. And I think that, you know, I really appreciate this conversation, and I hope that people will really embrace this idea that you and I have talked about, that mastery is in the journey. Mm-hmm. And you know, we all have people around us that are worth living for, and you know, there's nothing so important that we should walk around with hate in our heart for others. We're the first one destroyed by that.
Yeah.
And And I believe that if we will ensure that we at all times in our lives have unique challenges, whether we've placed them there or we've been invited to challenge by life, if we will lean into those moments, just embrace the difficulty, but embrace it with people. Let's be low, let ourselves be vulnerable. If we will do those things, we will emerge stronger. We will bring others with us, and we'll become better leaders. We'll be more resilient. And I think that's what the world needs right now. And for crying out loud, turn off all the crap.
It's a choice.
It is a choice. It is a choice.
Yeah.
Turn it off. It doesn't help us.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And it's funny on that matter specifically. You know, people sometimes ask me, "Do you want to watch this movie?" Or they send me a video from YouTube. Hey, check this out, and I'm like, "No, thank you." And they get like offended by it, and I explain. I say, "Look, like my brain is one of the most like the what flows through this brain, which then in turn changes my psyche, my emotional stability, my everything. I treat like something holy. Like it's very important to me what goes into my awareness. And so I choose to not be naive, but to be intentional about everything. Everything. The book I pick up, the ad I watch, I think it's incredibly, incredibly important because that's not where you learn. I think you learn in these conversations with people from their experiences, from asking questions, and from being curious. Ultimately, everything you said about questions, about the journey, and about understanding comes down to a genuine curiosity you have about other people and wanting to learn from them to expand your own viewpoint. I mean, you're the man, and I really just appreciate how authentically you showed up to this conversation, how honest and truthful you've been, how vulnerable you've been. You're just a real one. You're a real one, Abe, and the real ones find each other, and I feel super, super honored to know you. And we should travel, we should do events, we should do all kinds of stuff. I really, really mean that.
Do it, man. The world's going to open up.
Absolutely.
The road.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for this. I'm edified. I really appreciate the time. I feel like you provided me a needed therapy session, and unfortunately there's going to be some that are going to have to listen to it.
It's great.
Maybe in the middle we'll find
this is everybody's favorite type of conversation. I could tell you that for sure. So Abe, for everybody watching and listening, if they want to follow up with you, they want to work with you, what's the best way?
Our website, mymapscoach.com. Maps is in the, you're looking at a map, mymapscoach.com. And go check out my podcast, Choose Difficult. It's at choosedifficult.com.
I highly recommend it. I had a blast on it, and there are some amazing, amazing people that have been on your show. So I will include links to both of those things, My Maps Coach and Choose Difficult for people. Highly recommend people reach out to you for say hi, coaching, whatever it might be.
I love it. We this is what you've heard in me is the spirit of how we approach all those that we work with here, and and the other side of that is we're really calculated, right? There's a very analytical approach to your business. We call it the art and science because there's a science to it. The art is just the human experience of navigating the science where the change happens.
Totally.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.